What if I told you a grandmother, her daughter, and her granddaughter all walked across the same graduation stage at the exact same time? It sounds impossible, but what happened next shocked everyone who heard their story. No one in the Harper family ever imagined their lives would align like this. Not even close. But sometimes life quietly connects the dots in ways no one plans for, and the result can feel almost unreal. It all began in a quiet town where education was never just a dream, but a struggle, a second chance, and for one family, a lifelong journey. Evelyn Harper had been chasing a degree for most of her life. Now, in her late 60s, she had seen more classrooms than most people see in a lifetime. But finishing was never simple for her. Years ago, she had enrolled at Westbridge University when it was still a small technical college. Back then, she dreamed of becoming a social worker, someone who could help struggling families find stability and hope. But life had other plans. Bills came first, work came first, and slowly her studies were pushed aside again and again. "I'll go back next semester," she used to say. But semesters turned into years, and years turned into decades. Still, she never let go completely. At her desk, she kept a small ornament of a graduate in a black cap and gown. It was simple, almost fragile, but it reminded her of one thing every day, that she wasn't finished yet. Across town, her daughter Sarah Mitchell had already built a very different academic life. Sarah was practical, focused, and extremely driven. She had already earned one bachelor's degree in communications and even completed a master's in education. Most people would have stopped there, but Sarah didn't. While working full-time at Westbridge University in an administrative role, she began to feel something shift inside her. She was surrounded by students studying health, wellness, and community care. The more she saw them, the more she felt drawn toward a different path. Public health. At first, it seemed unnecessary. She already had degrees, she already had stability, but something about it wouldn't leave her mind. "I just kept thinking about how health affects every single family," she later said. "So I enrolled again." She didn't tell many people at first. She didn't want attention. She just quietly started taking classes while working her job during the day. And then there was Lily Carter, Sarah's daughter. Lily was the youngest of the three, full of energy, emotion, and curiosity about life. Unlike her mother and grandmother, she wasn't returning to education after years away. She was just beginning her journey. She chose psychology, not because it was easy, but because she wanted to understand people, their pain, their thoughts, their emotions. But college wasn't what she expected. It was overwhelming at times. Assignments piled up, exams came faster than she could breathe, and there were moments she wondered if she had chosen the right path. Still, something kept her going. Maybe it was watching her mother study late at night. Maybe it was hearing her grandmother talk about unfinished dreams. Or maybe it was something deeper, something that connected all three of them without them even realizing it yet. At first, their university lives moved separately. Evelyn attended evening classes when she could, often tired from work and life, but still determined. Sarah balanced her job at Westbridge University with lectures and assignments, often studying during lunch breaks. And Lily rushed between classes, cafes, and late-night study sessions, trying to keep up with everything. 3 women, 3 generations, 1 campus. But no one saw the bigger picture yet. Not until everything slowly started to overlap. It happened in the most ordinary way. One evening in early December, Sarah was sitting at the kitchen table reviewing her course schedule. Her laptop was open, papers scattered around her. Evelyn walked in with a cup of tea, slowly lowering herself into a chair. Lily came in a few minutes later, exhausted from a long day of classes. There was silence for a moment. Then Sarah frowned. Wait, she said slowly. When is your final exam schedule? Lily shrugged. End of April. Why? Evelyn adjusted her glasses. Mine says late April, too. Sarah blinked. She pulled her laptop closer. That can't be right. Lily leaned in. What? Sarah scrolled quickly, her expression changing. My graduation ceremony date is the last week of April. A pause fell over the room. Evelyn leaned forward. That's impossible. Sarah kept scrolling. Unless I'm reading this wrong. Lily grabbed her phone. Wait, let me check mine. A few seconds passed. Then Lily suddenly said, Oh my gosh. Both Sarah and Evelyn turned to her immediately. Lily looked up slowly. I think I'm graduating in April too. The room went silent. Only the sound of the clock filled the space. Evelyn gave a small, nervous laugh. That's just a coincidence. But something about it didn't feel like a coincidence. Sarah stood up now, grabbing printed emails from her bag. Okay, this is getting strange. She laid them on the table one by one. Evelyn looked down at hers, then Sarah's, then Lily's. Same month, same week, same university. Their eyes met. And that's when it hit them. They weren't just studying at the same time. They were about to graduate at the same time, from the same university, together. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then Evelyn leaned back slowly, covering her mouth with her hand. I've been trying to finish my degree for nearly 40 years, she whispered. Sarah looked at her mother, stunned. Mom, I didn't even know you were this close. Evelyn nodded quietly. I didn't want to make it a big thing until I was sure. Lily suddenly sat down, her eyes wide. So, we're all going to walk the stage together? Sarah shook her head slowly, still trying to process it. We didn't plan this, not at all. Evelyn smiled faintly, almost in disbelief. Life planned it for us, apparently. But even as they laughed, there was something deeper underneath. Excitement, fear, disbelief, and something none of them could fully explain yet. Because graduating together wasn't just a family moment. It was the result of decades of sacrifice, timing, and choices that somehow aligned in a way no one could have designed. Over the next few days, the news started to sink in. Sarah began telling a few colleagues at Westbridge University. Their reactions were always the same. Shock, then disbelief, then admiration. Lily told her friends who thought she was joking at first. And Evelyn, she just kept looking at that small graduation ornament on her desk a little longer than usual. One evening, she picked it up carefully and held it in her hands. I told you I'd make it, she whispered softly to herself. Sarah noticed her mother from across the room. You okay? Evelyn nodded slowly. It just feels unreal. But even with all the excitement building, there was still work to do. Assignments, exams, deadlines. Life didn't slow down just because something special was coming. In fact, everything felt more intense now. Lily struggled with pressure from exams. Sarah had deadlines stacking up at work and school. And Evelyn, despite her determination, had moments where exhaustion caught up with her more than she expected. One night, Lily broke down at her desk. I don't know if I can finish this, she admitted quietly. Sarah sat beside her. You're not doing this alone, Evelyn added gently. None of us are. And for the first time, Lily realized something powerful. They weren't just 3 students anymore. They were a team, a family tied together by something bigger than grades or degrees. Something built on years of unfinished dreams finally coming together at the same point in time. As April slowly approached, the reality of graduation started to feel closer, heavier, more real, and the question quietly hung in the air every single day. How would it feel to stand on that stage, together? But none of them knew yet that the most emotional part of their journey wasn't the graduation itself. It was what would happen just moments before they stepped onto that stage. And that moment was getting closer than any of them realized. If you are enjoying this story so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us bring more emotional and inspiring stories like this one to you. Because what happens next in their journey will change how you see family, dreams, and timing forever. And everything is about to get even more unexpected. The days before graduation felt like a countdown none of them could escape. Every morning, Sarah woke up thinking about the same thing: the stage, the lights, the crowd, and the three of them walking together. It didn't feel real yet, even though it was only days away. Evelyn kept adjusting her graduation outfit at home, as if checking it again and again would make the moment less fragile. Lily, on the other hand, moved between excitement and nervous silence, sometimes smiling for no reason, sometimes staring at her books without reading a single word. And still, life kept moving forward. Final exams came first. Lily sat in a crowded hall, hands slightly shaking as she turned her paper. Psychology questions filled the page, but her mind kept drifting away. Not to failure, not to fear, but to something much bigger. Her grandmother sitting in the same building somewhere. Her mother probably grading papers or rushing between meetings. All of them connected to the same ending. She took a slow breath, focused, and began writing. Across campus, Sarah was finishing her last assignment for public health. Her laptop screen felt heavier than usual, as if every word she typed mattered more than before. Because this wasn't just another semester. This was the end of something long, layered, and deeply personal. And Evelyn, she was in a quiet study room, reading her final notes with tired eyes but steady hands. Nearly 40 years of waiting, of pausing, of restarting. And now, finally, the finish line was right in front of her. The night before graduation arrived faster than anyone expected. None of them slept properly. In the Harper household, lights stayed on late into the night. Evelyn sat on the edge of her bed, holding that same small graduation ornament she had kept for decades. Sarah walked in quietly. "You're still awake?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "I don't think I can sleep tonight." Lily joined them a moment later, sitting cross-legged on the floor. For a while, no one spoke. Then Lily whispered, "What if I mess up tomorrow?" Sarah looked at her immediately. "You won't." Lily shook her head. "But what if I do?" Evelyn slowly placed the ornament on the table. "Then we still walk beside you." That simple sentence changed the silence in the room. Because suddenly, graduation wasn't about perfection anymore. It was about presence, about being there, together. Morning came with a strange kind of light, soft, bright, almost unreal. Westbridge University was already full of energy when they arrived. Families, students, cameras, laughter, nerves, everything blending into one moving wave of emotion. The three of them stood outside the main hall for a moment. Evelyn adjusted her gown. Sarah checked Lily's cap. Lily looked at both of them and laughed nervously. "Okay, this is actually happening." Evelyn nodded slowly. "It is." Sarah took a deep breath. "Together?" Evelyn smiled. "Together." And they walked in. The ceremony hall was massive. Rows of graduates filled every seat. The sound of applause echoed through the space like waves. But something unusual started happening as people noticed them. Whispers, turning heads, confused smiles. Because people began to realize something strange. A grandmother, a mother, a granddaughter, all wearing the same graduation colors, sitting close together, waiting for their names, in the same ceremony. Even the announcers paused slightly when they saw their names on the list. Then the moment began. One by one, names were called. Evelyn was the first of the three. Her hands trembled slightly as she stood up. She walked slowly across the stage, every step carrying decades of memories. When she received her diploma, the applause felt louder than anything she had ever heard in her life. For a moment, she just stood there, smiling, eyes slightly wet. Then she stepped down and looked back at the crowd, searching for them. Sarah was next. She walked with confidence, but her eyes were locked on her mother in the audience. When she reached the stage, she paused for half a second, just long enough to take it in. Then she smiled, accepted her diploma, and turned toward the audience. And finally, Lily. She stood up last. Her heart was beating fast now, not from fear, but from emotion. She walked forward slowly, scanning the crowd until she saw them. Her mother and grandmother, waiting, watching, smiling. And in that moment, something inside her settled completely. She crossed the stage, accepted her diploma, and for a brief second, looked out at the hall. 3 generations, 1 journey, 1 unexpected alignment of time. When she stepped down, she didn't rush back to her seat. She walked straight toward them. And that's when it happened. Evelyn reached out first and pulled her into a hug. Then Sarah joined. 3 women standing together in the middle of everything, not as individuals anymore, but as a single story finally completed. The audience began clapping again, louder this time. Some people stood up. Others wiped their eyes without realizing it, because something about it felt bigger than graduation. It felt like time itself had folded into a moment just to let them meet here. Later, outside the hall, reporters and students approached them. "How does it feel?" someone asked. Evelyn answered first, her voice soft. "It feels like life finally kept a promise I didn't even know I was still waiting for." Sarah smiled beside her. "We didn't plan any of this. It just happened." Lily laughed. "And somehow it still feels perfect." Evelyn looked at both of them for a long moment. "I thought I was finishing a degree," she said quietly. "But I think I was finishing a chapter of my life I left open for too long." As the sun began to set, the 3 of them walked slowly across the campus grounds. No rush, no schedule, just footsteps. Together, Lily broke the silence. "Do you think we would have finished if we didn't do it at the same time?" Sarah thought for a moment. "Maybe." Evelyn shook her head slightly. "No." They both looked at her. She smiled gently. "I think we needed each other to reach the end." No one argued with that, because somehow it felt true, not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, undeniable way. Later that evening, they sat at home again, the same place where everything had started. But something had changed. The air felt lighter. Evelyn placed her graduation ornament back on the shelf. This time, she didn't look at it like a reminder of something unfinished. She looked at it like a memory finally fulfilled. Sarah leaned back on the couch. "So, what now?" Lily grinned. "Now? We celebrate." Evelyn chuckled softly. "And maybe we rest." They all laughed. And for the first time in a long time, no one was rushing toward the next thing, because they had already reached something important. Not just a degree, not just a ceremony, but a shared moment that connected 3 lives across time. And as the night grew quiet, one truth stayed behind in that house. Dreams don't always arrive when you expect them. Sometimes they wait, sometimes they pause, and sometimes they bring your family with them when they finally come true. Moral of the story: it's never too late to finish what you started. And sometimes the most powerful journeys are the ones you don't take alone. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends.